Hi guys, Stefan here again, and if you watched yesterday's upload, you know that I've now officially been putting videos up on YouTube for 1 year, and it's just been a really great, fun experience, and I thought something that would be kind of fun to do would be to look back at the very first review I ever put up February of last year and just talk a little bit about it and the differences and the sort of the creative process I've gone through in this past year, how I've kind of changed things up, and how I hope to do things in the future. So here we go, go ahead and start this here. And this, I actually really like this intro. This is an intro I created before I even started the channel, really. I was kind of doing practice videos, figuring out how my new camera, my new editing software worked, and deciding what I wanted to put up in that first month or two. And I actually do really like the way this intro turned out. I like the footage and the song. I think it worked out really well. I stopped using it over the summer because I was doing a whole Summer of Sega thing, and I'm actually kind of proud of some of those videos I did for that summer, those summer months, and kind of a cool thing. And when I came back to the fall, I didn't go back to this, even though I do like it, because, I don't know, I'm of a mixed opinion on channel intros now. Part of me thinks it's cool and creative and creates an identity and a persona and a brand in a way. But on the other hand, it's kind of like, alright, get to the point, especially if you have people that want to watch multiple videos in a row or go through a playlist, or you've had a ton of videos up. You don't want to watch that every time. So, I don't know, I'm of a mixed opinion. I think maybe it's just kind of like, in a way, a little bit of a waste of time. Just kind of get to the point and start the video. So, I haven't gone back to it. I might in the future. Who knows? I think now I do kind of like more the style of just jumping in there, or the way I tend to do openings for reviews is kind of do just like Stefan Homberger presents, and then like the title screen for the game with like the intro kind of playing in the background, just so a certain like a way of a flow that I found worked better. I always like the opening to this game too. It's definitely, I think, a very underrated release game, launch game for the PS2. Wow, that background is so different. The way we have our games is, actually all the consoles are out in the living room, but all the games, the physical games, are in the bedroom, and there really isn't one big wall that's big enough. There's always like doors in the way to have everything in one spot, so it was kind of a hard way of figuring out where can I be in a place that has something like games in the background. I can kind of get good lighting, which this is not very good lighting, but one of the better spots where there's at least something behind me. It doesn't feel like blank and empty, and now it looks a lot better. Back then, this is just kind of where I had all of my PS2 games, and then on the wall, on the opposite side, like over here, would be where like all the other games are, and DVDs and things like that, but it's just not a good place to film in that corner. And now I switched it out for multiple systems that I don't have quite as many games for, so it kind of breaks it up with different size boxes and colors. I like that better. This is a game I decided to do for my first review because it was one of the first, it was a launch title, one of the first PS2 games I ever played, and I thought it was something that was interesting and accessible. It was something that's fairly obscure, but it's not completely out there and some import-only thing. It's something that's more accessible to people, and it's something I could, for me, as a first attempt to review, I thought I could do like a better job of something like that.
Atmosphere that utilizes seemingly endless puzzles and mazes and unique settings and creatures to drive the player forward through curiosity more than trying to find out what the next chapter of the story is. You're more driven by...
The first thing I noticed, like looking back compared to newer videos that I wish I'd done a better job with, is using different audio channels and having some actual like background music from the game going as I was speaking. I did a whole lot more of just kind of silencing the sounds of the game while I was talking, and then cutting in the sounds from the game whenever I was silent. And it feels a little too empty, I guess you could say, while I'm talking, to not have that. And then occasionally end up with sequences like this where I thought this first boss fight really got across a lot of the atmosphere of the game and the music and the style of the gameplay, but it does create a little bit of dead space without me talking over it, and I think it's that was just, again, an issue of me eventually learning the flow and the timing of reviews, not just how to do that, but how to do it in a way that really makes the review better, and in a way that I enjoy watching more than just creating. Yes, this is a good game if you ever played it. I mean, if you played the, I know now the, like Dark Souls games are really popular, and Bloodborne, things like that, and those came more specifically from the two Shadow Tower games, which are spin-offs of the Kingsfield games. If you've ever, they're a really great series from Software. I really like those. I actually prefer them to the newer stuff. And this is also, like Shadow Tower, a spin-off to the Kingsfield series. They made this in between Kingsfield 3 and 4, and it's something that's kind of lost in time because it's not something that I think a very general, like public, general audience would really grasp onto, and some fans of the series didn't like it because it was very easy compared to the Kingsfield games, or like the Dark Souls or the Shadow Tower games. It was definitely something that I think they were trying to be a little more, capture a more mainstream audience without really giving it a real mainstream feel. It still felt like a Kingsfield game and played like that, and a lot of cool mechanics.
But it's actually not tedious at all, because as you go through each area again and again, you're constantly unlocking more pathways and going through doors that you couldn't get through before because you have a key now, or a certain spell, or you've done something to unlock a different route. So it's always a little different each time. And even in the most complicated and intricate mazes, eventually you get to the point where you're so familiar that you just kind of blaze right through. Graphically, the environments and creatures are very detailed and creative, and look excellent for a launch title. The game also runs at a steady 60 frames per second, which is a huge increase for the Kingsfield series, which is...
One thing that I toyed with a lot in the first couple months, though, is changing up the style. If you watch this and the review of The Bouncer for PS2 and a couple of those other earlier ones, I changed up between having just gameplay during the review and not really seeing my face and just kind of talking over it, and other ones where it was just me talking to the camera with maybe gameplay in like a window up in the corner, or one where I mixed up the two, where it would be just me talking to the camera and then it switches to just gameplay and back and forth, and trying to decide what style I like. And I really have settled on, I think, when I do more serious actual reviews, or I'm trying to give as much of an unbiased opinion as possible and give an actual review score at the end out of 10, that type of thing, where I'm being a little more serious and analytical and like detail oriented, to do just the gameplay footage with my voiceover, and kind of have that differentiate from when I'm just kind of talking about a game, when I'm doing something where I'm just nostalgically talking about a series that I love and talking about different nostalgic events with it, and that is more just me in front of the camera and not really having a lot of gameplay, if any. And I feel like that really separates those two videos, that style that I'm going for, if I'm doing an actual review or I'm just kind of waxing nostalgic.
I must get them.
Gameplay is fairly standard for first-person RPG fare. Fans of the Kingsfield series specifically will be right at home with the style of constant strafing and patterns of driving forward for an attack and pulling back to avoid an enemy's retort. Where Kingsfield differs from the rest of the series is in its namesake, the ring system. Throughout the game, you're going to come across...
I kind of did it a little bit here unintentionally in a way, but I've now kind of ended up categorizing a lot of my reviews, talking about story and characters, and separating that from talking more specifically about gameplay and then sound, and just then like visually, how the game looks, art versus graphics, that type of thing. And instead of just doing, this was more of a stream of consciousness type thing, where I just kind of went through and talked about my impressions of the game. This part right here, before I finish that train of thought, this part right here with the ice, where I'm equipping the fire ring and I'm melting the ice, this was the most frustrating thing ever in the beginning, because it was timed so perfectly to what I was saying, where I was talking about solving the puzzles and using the rings, the elemental powers, to make your way through the environment, and it really just showed exactly what I was talking about. So I really wanted that in there, that little like couple seconds, and for some reason every time I rendered the video, that part just got so distorted, and like random parts of the video would jump into it. It made no sense. Like parts that I edited out and even like deleted, where somehow it would look fine in the editor every time, but I would render it, and that little section of just a few seconds would just be this random jumble. It'd be a disaster, and I kept doing it over and over again, and I ended up redoing like half the video just to get those couple of seconds, because I just became so obsessed with showing that, equipping the fire ring and melting the ice and like that little thing. I'm like, no, it have to have that. It shows exactly what I'm talking about. And it was just obsessive, and I was getting so stressed and like angry about that little thing. And it's just that wanting, perfectionism with the first couple of reviews, and it was such a stressful week to begin with, because I wanted to have like a decent amount of content up to begin with, and trying to pump out, I forget, it was maybe like I had like 6 videos going up the first 2 days, and most of them were like full reviews, and the fact they were the first ones I'd ever done, it was very stressful trying to make sure that everything works out. And yeah, I'm definitely not like unhappy with that review. It's not something I'm gonna like take down. I definitely think though, if you go and really watch this one in full without me, jabbering on over it, and compare it to something like a little more recent, like my Tales of the Abyss review, or even like Fragile Dreams, like some of the more recent things like that, and like bigger ones, or even the Shenmue reviews I did, the Shenmue More Than a Game, the Shenmue review, and the Shenmue 2 review. A lot of those, just everything's so much better, and I've really put together more of a style now, like I was saying about how I differentiate between just kind of talking about a game and actually doing a review, and I've really settled now on a structure, and I think that is an important thing to figure out, especially if you're someone who hasn't started with the channel yet, or you're like me, you haven't been on that long, just a year. To me, that's been the greatest learning experience, is trying to just find a way to be yourself, and at the same time just find a more solidified style, and not try and copy someone because they are being successful, and just be yourself and find that style. And that's been like the hardest thing, is trying to figure out exactly what I want to do, and what do I want to put up on this channel, how do I want to structure things. And I've really come down to determine that I have this certain structure and way that I want to do actual reviews, and then just kind of a lot of discussion videos like I'm doing right now, just discussion type things. And the third style would be more comedic things with my chinchilla Minx. She's become kind of a character on the channel, and it's been a little bit since she's been on, with all the stuff going on with the holidays, and now I'm doing the Andromeda month. But in March she'll be back with a couple videos, and now my wife's finally getting on the channel, so it's just been a very fun first year figuring out what I want to do here, and decide, I think that's really important, figuring out why am I on YouTube, why am I doing this, what is the point, and then just kind of sticking with that. And yeah, it's just been a fun journey, and that's my quick thoughts on that first review I did, and the differences between where I started just 12 months ago and where I've come. And I'm, obviously it's not perfect, it's not the best stuff you're going to see on YouTube, but I'm still like rather proud of the progress I've made between this and, say, again, something like the later Shenmue videos, or like Tales of the Abyss, that kind of stuff, Tales of Legendia, that review, just things like that, really just the difference. And finally now, this is the year where I think I'm finally going to be getting what I feel is very consistent and good quality content coming out, because I've now, again, solidified this is what I want, this is my style, and I'm just really excited. Thank you guys for watching and sticking through this video. There's a little bit of a look back, and a look back at my first year and the differences here. I'll see you around, and again, the best is yet to come.